Irony. Here's the wisdom of the world being bowled over by the foolishness of God. People who rest at least one day in 7 are consistently more productive than those who don't. People who keep Sabbath are proven to have greater resilience to disease and infection. They don't burn out as often. They're more joyful in the workplace. People who rest from their labors are more creative. They're more creative. You ever have that where you got a problem to solve at work, or you're working on a presentation and you're stuck, you're up against a wall, and you go away because of a distraction. Maybe your kids need something, they got to be driven somewhere, or you go to the gym, or you go for a walk, and then while you're not even focusing on that task that you have to do, bang, it's like the idea comes to you. You ever get that? I get that just about every week. People who take Sabbath, who rest from their labors, are more creative than those who don't. So Sabbath keeping not only keeps us better connected to God as that rope that we talked about, but it has bonus blessings in addition to this, which is why I think Jesus said this in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2. The Sabbath was made for the benefit of mankind, not mankind for the Sabbath. So Sabbath is God's gift to you. It's for your own good. Which makes me have to, I got to scratch my head. Because I'm not good at this. Anybody who knows me knows that I have a hard time sitting still. I have a hard time not doing something. I've hated stopping my whole life. So imagine the wake-up call when I read the following sentence out of Scazzero's book this week. And this quote should come up for you. When we are busier than God requires, we do violence to ourselves. And for me, it's the word violence in that sentence that I can't get past. Because I take care of myself. I certainly don't intentionally harm myself in any way. But it says here, when I skimp on Sabbath, I'm injuring myself. I'm doing violence to myself. I'm doing violence to the way God created me to be and to exist. So what's a biblical Sabbath supposed to look like? Scary question. Some of you are holding your breath. Because maybe you grew up in a church and what Sabbath meant for you wasn't very fun. Well, looking at church history and looking at the Bible, Peter Scazzero identifies 4 elements of biblical Sabbath keeping, and I think he's bang on, so I'm going to share them with you. But again, before I do, the last thing we want to do is go all legalistic about when and how you need to observe Sabbath. Okay, so let's not let legalism get into this. The key, again, is this regular rhythm of a 1 day in 7 pattern where we're down, where we're off the clock. And the way that you do that and when you do that is entirely up to you. So think of these 4 elements that I'm going to share as kind of like the outline of a house, the foundation of a house. Okay? If you don't have the foundation, your house is going to get washed away. It's not going to last very long. But once you've got that foundation, you can decide where the doors are going to be and how many windows are going to be and how big the rooms are going to be. Think of that when you hear these 4 elements. These are just the foundation. And how you're going to build is going to depend on your personality and on your circumstances and a number of other factors. Okay, number 1. Stop. Stop. And if you're like me, this is easier said than done. Most of us think we can't stop until we're finished what it is that we're working on. We have to complete our projects, return our phone calls, answer our emails, run our errands. There's always one more goal to be accomplished before we can stop. And the problem with this is that if we wait until we're done to stop, we're never going to stop. So we must stop because it's time to stop. And that's why this is a discipline. This is a discipline. It takes training. We stop because it's time to stop. We stop because there are forces larger than us taking care of the universe, and our efforts, although important and necessary and valuable, are not indispensable. We are not indispensable. The galaxy will go on without us. It can manage without my efforts for 24 hours once a week. So really it's a matter of trust. Do you trust God to provide for you, to take care of you, when you follow his command to rest one day in 7? Can you trust God? Can I trust God? Now here's something I've discovered from the times that I have been faithful in keeping Sabbath, is that God can be trusted, that he does provide. It's like Jesus takes our loaves and fishes, which obviously are inadequate to feed the multitudes, and he miraculously multiplies them to meet not only our needs, but the needs of those that we have responsibility to. So number 1 is stop. Number 2 is rest. And if you've been listening, you anticipated that one coming. So we rest from our work, right? Whether we are students, we rest from our studies. If we work in an office, we rest from that. If we work in a factory, we rest from that. If we work in the home, we rest from that. Wherever we work, we rest. And that's the obvious part of rest. But how about resting in the following ways as well? Because we can rest from our work and still not be very rested or restful. How about we rest from our errands? How about we rest from hurriedness? How about we rest from decision making? Some of us would do well to rest from worry. Or rest from technology. Unplug for a little while. Rest from multitasking. Stop, rest. Number 3, delight. Take time to delight in whatever it is that you delight in. And use all 5 senses that God gave you. There are multiple ways to do this. You know what fills you up. You got to do what fills you up on this day. For me, oftentimes it's spending time in nature. When I came here this morning, it was overcast, and someone came in and said it was a beautiful sunny day. I can't wait to get out there, and I'm going to spend the better part of the day, until the hockey game starts anyway, in the sunshine. All right, so delight. Stop, rest, delight. Number 4, fourth and final, is to contemplate. Take time to reflect on God's great love for you. Take time to reflect on how God views you. Historically, Sabbath keeping has involved this. It has involved getting together with other people who revere God and want to follow him and worshiping. So what you're doing right now is part of good Sabbath keeping. What you're doing right now is part of good Sabbath keeping. I've always felt sorry for people who, after the service, they come up to me and they say, you know what, Daryl, that was a great service. I just wish I could get here more often. I have such a hard time getting here, on Sundays. And I know there are legitimate reasons for not making it here, like an ill child or being sick yourself, shift work, being out of town, visiting parents or friends out of town. But when these people are sharing these comments, those aren't the reasons that they're referring to. They're just referring to, you know what, I just slept in again, or I had too many errands to run today. I didn't have time to get to church. That would just be too stressful. And I would say it would be too stressful if you didn't come here. I would say that you need to give yourself a gift. The gift of an hour of uninterrupted time for you to contemplate life's deeper truths, to contemplate God's amazing love for you. Because if you don't take time to reflect on that, you're going to forget it. And I'm going to forget it. And then my image of me is going to form my image of me, instead of God's image of me forming my image of me, which is far healthier, believe me. In the New Testament, in Hebrews chapter 4, we're told that Sabbath rightly observed gives us a foretaste of heaven. Sabbath rightly observed gives you and me a foretaste of heaven. So if you're stopping and resting and delighting and contemplating God, you're getting a weekly breath of eternity. So let's give ourselves permission to stop and to breathe the air of eternity.